Hello all you nightmare nerds, and welcome to our first ever episode of Old Haunts. If you haven't figured it out by now, Josh and I have a bit of a moderate obsession with The Shining, and while he will let the movie take his proverbial cake any day, for me the original novel will always slightly beat out Kubrick. And if you also haven't figured it out by now, I do an insane amount of inconvenient traveling to visit all of these iconic places that consume my horror-loving heart. So today, Nightmare Nerds, we will be discussing the one and only Estes Park, home of the notorious Stanley Hotel, a place you might know better as the Overlook. The story of Stephen King's first trip to the Stanley Hotel and how it inspired arguably the most iconic work of horror fiction of all time is the stuff of legend. So get ready to dive into it all. The ghosts, the rooms, the town, the atmosphere, the red rum. You better believe the red rum. So there's so much to talk about, I don't even want to waste time on this intro anymore. Welcome to Old Haunts, Estes Park. So welcome to our inaugural episode of Old Haunts. Today we will be talking about both of our individual visits that we've had to Estes Park, Colorado. Now, the first thing we did when we decided to do this podcast was look up extensively what it's like to say the word Estes, because we've been yelled at a lot by a few different people. Josh, why don't you tell me how you were told to say it?
So I remembered incorrectly, I feel like, because I thought that we got told that it was Estes.
Oh, okay.
And then,
not testes.
Not testes.
Like does not rhyme with testes.
Does not rhyme with testes, but it's also not Estes. Wait.
It's so we we looked it up. So we were like, okay, the person was like, I live here. It is not pronounced Estes. People call it Estes. I never at once even thought about calling it that. So apparently people just think that's how you say it. They also said it's not Estes, like with an I. Yes. It's Estes, like Estes Park. Yeah, which is a very specific delineation from Estes.
Yeah,
Estes,
so I think of that
Estes.
as like asbestos.
Asbestos. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We can think about that.
Okay.
But so something about both of us that you guys should probably know is we like to seek out these famous horror haunted areas of the country and just experience them. Right. Mm-hmm. Later this year, I will be going to the Timberline Lodge in Oregon, which they filmed the exteriors of the Stanley Hotel, or the exteriors of the Overlook Hotel, in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Josh has already been there.
Yes, sir.
So I'm sure we'll do one of these for that once I come back from that. And over the past few years, I've spent a pretty significant amount of time in Bangor, Maine, which most people know as Derry from It. And Stephen King lives there. There's the Stephen King tour. We're going to have Jamie Tinker from the Stephen King Tours of Maine on this podcast in a few weeks, so get excited for that. We'll have an interview with him. But it's always been a dream of mine to go to Estes Park and stay a night in the famous Stanley Hotel. The Shining is really, really important to me. This is a very interesting dynamic that Josh and I have because though we love both, the book is much more important to me than the Stanley Kubrick film is, and it's almost vice versa with Josh. The Stanley Kubrick film is it your favorite movie of all time?
It is absolutely my favorite movie of all time.
Okay, it's his favorite movie of all time, which is great.
Yeah.
So it's how we became friends. It's how we decided we wanted to start doing this. And what I found out while I was there, I guess I didn't know this specifically, was when they were in pre-production for The Shining, Stephen King recommended the Stanley to Kubrick because obviously this was his Stanley Hotel, right? This is his Overlook. So he called Kubrick. He said, "Let's go out there." So Kubrick flies out to Estes Park, sees the Stanley, and says, This looks too mom and pop. I can't do that."
Yeah.
And essentially says, "I'm not filming it here."
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny when you see the Timberline, when you see it in person, I feel like, and this may be just coming from me, the Shining film fan, but it's a scarier looking. It's like the right look for the film, for sure.
It looks menacing. Like, I've never seen it. I'm gonna go there, obviously, but even he's not wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Like the Stanley Hotel is this big white building with this like orange roof. Mm-hmm. and the Timberline is like get away, you know, like it just gives off that look, right?
Yeah, it's funny too because I feel like the Stanley Hotel, if you like picked it up and placed it in Maine, it would fit just so perfectly.
It would fit.
So maybe that's why King like
yeah,
liked
that's why he loved it so much, right? Yeah. So you know, when was the first time you were there? Kind of tell me what that experience was like.
We were there I'm trying to differentiate the Stanley from the Timberline. So the Stanley, I was there in 2018. Late 2018. Okay. We were on a trip to Boulder, Colorado, and we went up to Rocky Mountain National Park. And obviously I had to make a stop at the Stanley,
of course,
on the way to Rocky Mountain. And yeah, so we toured the gift shop. They kind of keep it pretty locked up. Like we couldn't really go anywhere inside the hotel. So
yeah, it was a little different. It was exactly the same actually, but it was a little different with quarantine because you know they really wouldn't let people up the stairs or anything like that. Like they had people staying there to make sure you wouldn't go. I had a weird experience coming up to it because I fantasized about this moment so many times in my head, right? Because I want to go see the Stanley. This is Stephen King is cool in the sense that like he doesn't and with real world stuff he doesn't mess around with it. Like he's like Bangor's Dairy, got it, cool, I can go see that and enjoy that, right? And he's like, the Stanley is the Overlook, great, I know this, I can go see that and enjoy that. You know, very famously from the novel, there's one road that goes up to the Stanley or the Overlook Hotel, right? And it gets snowed in, and like no one can go up there in the winter. And like I'm prepping this image in my head of like driving through mountains, like on cliffs and stuff, and like there's nothing around for miles, and then you get to this hotel in the middle of the mountains. And the Stanley Hotel is literally like in a parking lot of a town, right? Like it's attached to a pretty major city. Yeah. And it throws you off a lot because I had this image in my head of just being isolated like the Torrances, right? And it's literally like, do you want to go to the Walmart down the street? Because like it's ready to go, right? And so did you feel the same way, or were you like more prepared for that than I was?
So I wasn't explicit. I don't think I was explicitly thinking that in my head, but I do remember being like kind of shocked when we arrived to it. I was like, oh, because I think we just there's a grocery store like quite close to it, and we like popped in there, and I'm like, oh, we must have like a bit of a drive to get to the Stanley, right? And now it's like a half a mile up the street. And it just kind of like is among this little town in Colorado.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer, but the town, the fact that I have this image in my head and it's not a reality is a bit of a bummer, but the town of Estes Park is actually pretty neat.
Oh, it's lovely.
It you know, there's all these shops down this main street, and it's not like a shore town shops. You know how like you walk down the shore and it's just like shirts on pressing machines like right in front of you, right? There's like leatherworking shops, and
you know,
nice
there are like distillery there.
And there are shirt shops and stuff, but it's very authentic. It's not like typical vacation town, right? Which I thought was really cool. And there was a water wheel, which I was like, there's a real water wheel. And so I had this vision of this water wheel powering the entire town, but I doubt that.
How was it for like, was it busy when you were there? Was the hotel busy when you were there?
The hotel was not super busy.
Okay.
This was a bummer for me. The Stanley Hotel has this very long kind of quote unquote faux elegant like lobby, and it's a very long lobby, and there's an old timey car from the 1920s sitting in there as a model, and it's very famous. And if you've ever seen the 1996 4 or 6, can't remember, miniseries of The Shining, it's the half the miniseries takes place in that lobby, right? I really wanted to sit in the lobby and read The Shining, right? Like I just wanted to do that, and you could, but they had the whole place shut down for COVID, so the lobby wasn't very heavily trafficked. There's a bar and a restaurant called Cascades in the back corner that was a host to another movie I found out about while I was there, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you know, I could imagine it being more heavily trafficked even in a slow time of the year, not during quarantine times, because they were limiting people that could go into that restaurant and in that bar, which is a very famous whiskey bar. Apparently, it's one of the most famous whiskey bars in the world. Yeah, so you like people couldn't just go in and out. You had to make a reservation online to even get into that restaurant. And the shop, which I can only imagine is the second most thing people go to look at there, right? Because of all the Shining stuff. They had it blocked off, and it worked kind of like a snack bar counter at a high school basketball game, where you had to walk up and like point at what you wanted behind them, and they brought you what you wanted. And I'm a little bit ashamed to admit the amount of money I spent on Shining memorabilia at this place. But so it wasn't super crazy busy.
Yeah.
Unlike you, I did stay in the Stanley Hotel. I tried really hard to get the Stephen King room, which is room 217. However, it was booked for a while. So I got what I was told was the second best thing, the most, what Ghost Hunters, I think it was Hunters, said was the most paranormal active room in the place, which was room 428, which is, they call it, they call it the cowboy room. Because apparently, I don't know why, a cowboy walks up and down, because as cowboys are wont to do.
It's Colorado, yeah.
It's cowboys in Colorado. We've talked about this for a while. I came prepared, right? Mm-hmm. I had my GoPro ready to go to hang up on like the ceiling so that I could film the whole room while we slept, and I brought my spirit box to see if I could connect to the dead, right? And I saw and experienced absolutely nothing, and I'm so mad because they were like, oh, people see things in there all the time, and I was like, not me. And my sister, who I went there with, I love her to death, but she was insufferable during this whole experience, and she's gonna listen to this and be like, I was not. But at least 4 times we were in the middle of the mountains, right? So she's like, I want to go outside and look at the stars. At no point was I ever like, I know we're not allowed to go look at the stars, but she made it seem like I was the villain, being like, no stars for you. So we go outside and we look at the stars, and she's like, I just love looking at the stars because they're real, unlike ghosts. Thank you, Aubrey.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. She's going to listen to this and be so mad.
Thanks for raining on my parade.
Yeah. I mean, and we did a ghost tour too, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but I don't regret paying the extra money for a quote unquote spirited room, right? We had this big room. If like the way it works is Stanley Hotel kind of looks like a big U, and there's like a big, on the 4th floor, it carves into the roof because it used to be a giant attic, and there's these big like windows that pop out of the ceiling. There's a word for them. I can't remember what they're called. And so we stayed in one of those corner rooms, right? So we were like at the front looking out into the mountains, and it was really, really cool. And I walk the halls at night after midnight, like with my GoPro, like I'm going to find something. I'm going to find something. I'm still looking through all that footage for the 19th time.
Yeah.
But I haven't found anything yet, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, you never know, right? Something might pop up eventually.
It could be a delayed haunt, right? Yeah. Be like, I've looked at this picture a million times, and now it's here. So it was a great experience. So when you were there, they wouldn't even let you up the stairs, right?
No, it was pretty it was pretty clear to us that like unless you were a guest staying at the hotel, that you were not going to have access to anything. Unlike you, I was able to get into the gift shop, but I understand the COVID restrictions because it is a tiny little gift shop. There was some sort of trail running film festival going on, which was intriguing to me and my wife, because we both are into that. But so it was like pretty busy. The grounds were pretty busy, and there's a hedge maze on site, so we got to walk through that, which was fun.
One of my best friends, he actually went to the Stanley a few months before I did. And he was the one that kind of planted, I need to go there in my brain, right? And so as soon as he was like, yeah, I'm here, it's pretty cool. I'm like, okay, well, I'm like on my way. So I made it a point to get there this year. And so he drives there. He FaceTimes me from outside the front doors and shows me the hotel. And I'm like, wow, what a great friend. You're awesome. Thank you for letting me experience this with you. And he turns around and he doesn't turn around. He says, I went through the hedge maze. I was like, oh, that's cool. because I know that there's not really a hedge maze at the Stanley, right?
Yeah.
There's the in the book there's the hedge animals. In the movie there's the hedge maze, right? And I'm like, I guess they put in a hedge maze. And he goes, it's bullshit. And he turns around and the hedges come up to like your knees, but it's technically a maze. And so it's funny to see how like the Stanley was like, okay, we need to appeal to these Shining nerds as much as we possibly can. We're gonna put in our own hedge maze.
It's basically the size of the hedge maze that Jack looks over on the table.
On the table. Yeah, it's. I mean, I went through it. Don't get me wrong. I did everything I could, and I don't want to say I got lost in the shin high hedge maze, but it took me a while. It took me a while to get out. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, so I was reading about other places in the hotel that are apparently haunted.
Yep.
Were you able to get into the underground tunnels?
Yes, we did. Okay. So I'll tell you about the ghost tour. So when I booked this quote unquote spirited room, they were like, because you paid so much more money for this room, we're gonna throw in a ghost tour experience for you. Like, great, that's awesome. First thing they do is they send you down to the basement. You might have been there's like a coffee shop down there and a whole bunch of props from The Shining, not the Stanley Kubrick version, but the miniseries version, because they actually shot it there. So you go down there and there's a little waiting area, and The Shining is playing on the TV. And it's just everything I could possibly want in my little bubble of horror Stephen King world. And we were the last tour of the night, which is cool because they reserve that for hotel guests because we're going around at night. So the first thing that our tour guide does is takes us over to the concert hall, which is apparently one of the big hot spots of the place. So we go into the concert hall. She turns off the lights. I'll save the history lessons for later because there's a lot of crazy history in the Stanley Hotel, but we walk around the concert hall. She says that there was once a gardener that worked there. I think his name was Paul, and he died of a heart attack on the job right in front of the concert hall, but he really liked his job and he liked working around the concert hall, and so he now haunts this big old concert hall. So I'm like, all right, well, if Paul, and she says people have gotten pictures of him, so I'm like, all right, well, if Paul's here, I
ain't leaving without a picture of this guy.
I am getting Paul. Paul, unfortunately, did not find it necessary to reveal himself to me.
God damn it.
I'm not happy with you, Paul.
If you're listening, Paul.
If you're listening, Paul, WTF. But it was creepy. They shut the lights off, and they gave us a little history of the hotel. Then we went down into the basement. They do a little bit of an experiment with lollipops. So they make us balance lollipops on their hands. They say a ghost that likes lollipops is around there.
Whoa, that's so specific.
Yeah, and there was a haunted mirror we got to take pictures of, and then they take us into the grand ballroom. They give us even more of a history of this crazy hotel. And then finally, she says, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take you to the tunnels, right? And so she takes us downstairs into this door that's just it's just a door, right? And you open this door and you're all of a sudden in a rock tunnel under the hotel, which is cray. She had a bunch of different pictures she showed us of someone took this 3 weeks ago, and the one of Paul in the concert hall was like a shadowy figure. Could have been, sure. The one she showed us of the tunnel was it literally looked like the head from The Exorcist, like the spinny head, and just laying on the ground. I'm like, that okay. You had me with the other one, but no. So I took pictures all over the tunnels to try to find something because it was the last place we were going. She told us that. To me, it was like, well, if I'm going to see anything, it's going to be in this tunnel, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm taking pictures everywhere, and I sent them to you. There's one picture. I'm looking through them all, and there's a shadow in the background, and there's two glowing eyes, and the closer you zoom in on it, you're like, what is that? It was our tour guide.
Yeah,
I was really bummed when I figured it out because I wanted it to be real, and then I was like, I can't be that person. I have to be realistic. It was our tour guide. She peeked her head in real quick, which is why I didn't Like I was like, I don't think it was it. But then like if you zoom in, you'd be like, you can see the mask that she was wearing.
Hold up though. Did you send that to me before you realized it was your tour guide or after?
After.
Yeah, because you had me. I was like, whoa, dude, that's crazy. And then you were like, it's a tour guide.
I know. I know. I sent it to my same friend who went there the first time, and I did not tell him it was the tour guide. I still have it.
Still have it? Nice.
Yes, that I've seen a ghost. It was a very wild experience. Then we went back up to our room, right, and I did my spirit box test and received nothing. The cowboy did not want to sing Hank Williams songs with me, which I found very rude on his behalf.
Were you singing Hank Williams songs, hoping that the cowboy would join in?
I might have been saying...
I can picture that, so that's why I'm asking.
Hear my lonesome whippoorwill. Yeah, so, I mean, we're not professional paranormal investigators. It's something we want to do on this channel later on. Like, if you guys are listening and you think your house is haunted, that's the kind of stuff we want to do, right? We want to go to people who think it's there. Not these... I mean, we would love to investigate, right? Like the Stanley at 3 a.m. when no one's around, right? But we want to take to the streets. We want to hear from you guys. So, like, if you guys think your house is legitimately haunted, you think you have a picture of something in your house, please send it to us. It's something we would love to do. Because we're not professionals, right? Like we want to be the trustworthy guys that have no idea what they're doing and they catch something for real.
Yeah, I'll make sure Mike puts a fresh set of batteries in his spirit box before we do any of that.
Don't make fun of my spirit box, man.
I'm not.
Yeah. But it is interesting because I've actually had this conversation with people before who've looked at me like I'm insane. But when we were down in those tunnels, we noticed that there were sparkles coming in from the rock that was making up the tunnel. That was so we found out that the Stanley Hotel wasn't built with a standard foundation. The foundation is actually the rock underneath of it.
I was going to ask. I was going to ask if it's built on the mountain, but
it's built on it. Yeah. So the rock is part of the foundation, and guess what that rock is made out of?
Bones.
Limestone. And of course, limestone. Yeah. And I've actually had this conversation with people because I'm crazy. Limestone is actually a conductor of energy, and paranormal investigators believe that hot spots for ghosts are all built on deposits of limestone because it attracts, and it's under the theory that ghosts are made up of some sort of spiritual energy, right? And that if limestone is a conductor of energy, it can attract different kinds, and that limestone deposits can literally be like breaks into the dimension, like doors that spirits can come through, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so when I found that out, I looked at my sister and I was like, what did I tell you about limestone? And she was like, I wasn't listening. So, but when I heard it, I got really, 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 really excited because I was like, this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I still didn't see anything, but
yeah. The funny thing is too, I think the first photo that you sent me when you arrived at the Stanley was like your sister's back, and she was in the bathroom, like in the bathroom door, like peeking into the bathtub, and I was like, is she looking into the bathtub for any sort of human entity?
Yeah. Is she looking for ghosts? I was like, no, she's looking for Band-Aids. Because on that road trip, I have the best luck in the world. I think we've talked about this. Every hotel we went to had hair in the drain, like everyone. I don't care, like I truly don't. But it's my sister. It's the end of the world. So in this haunted hotel, she's like, let me check the drain first. I need to check the drain.
That's fair.
So
I get that.
Yeah, and Stanley, if you are Stanley, Mr. Hotel, if you are listening, there was no hair in the drain. We were very happy with the presentation.
Oh, nice.
You were I think the first hotel we went to, and we were like, there's no.
Probably the oldest hotel that you went to too.
Yeah, the oldest one. Yeah, I'm wearing a hoodie right now. I bought for the gift shop from Way Too Much Money. Says spirited since 1909. Now I cannot confirm that you are spirited, for I did not see anything.
Yeah.
However,
well, at the Stanley Hotel, Mr. Stanley Hotel, if you ever want us to come back out again, we'll gladly stay in 217 and bring our spirit box and GoPro.
Please do. Yeah. So while you were there, did you by any chance have a moment to visit the Estes Park Brewing Company.
100% I did. Of course I did.
We went, and it was a cool little spot. There were beer tasting tours, but you couldn't go on them anymore, which was
That's
a shame. But they did have the Red Rum Ale.
Yep.
And the Shining Ale.
I know. And I was very, very disappointed that you had those and they didn't have those when I was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you should have. I would have brought one back for you.
It's all good. It's all
I
good.
would have snuck that
to get back
boy on
out
the plane.
Yeah.
We'll just have to go make a road trip.
Yeah.
The whole town is really immersed in it, which is pretty cool. And not to like a restrictive extent, because you could walk through the town proper, that main street, and go in all the stores, and you wouldn't... most of them you wouldn't find a lick of red rum or, The Shining and stuff, but you can tell the town really kind of embraces it, and especially the Stanley, because, they gave us a little history lesson while we were there, and apparently the Stanley was on hard times until Steve came along and wrote a book about the hotel, and then they leaned into it. They were like, "Yep, no, we're haunted for sure. Come on down, take a peek."
Yeah, and it's funny too. Again, when you go out to the Timberline, it's much more geared towards the movie, whereas the Stanley is much more geared towards the book and the miniseries. So it's like this interesting contrast in basically the same story, right? They're the same text.
I've thought about this and talked about this a lot, but it's astounding to me how Stephen King is his own industry. Like, you ever think about that? Like, he literally saved a dying hotel that was dying for a pretty long time in the 70s to... I mean, I can't speak to how great they're doing right now, but like they certainly seem to be loving it up there with their situation. And it's all because of Stephen King. He's his own industry. He has the power to just give money. Like, it's pretty wild when you think about it. Especially, we'll talk about this more in the Bangor, Maine old haunts that we're going to do, especially probably during the interview with Jamie once we're up at the Stephen King Tours LLC. But he's done so much just for Maine itself. So much industry coming through that just from his creations.
Well, yeah, think about, is there anybody else that you can think about that there's a lore surrounding his writing, right? Just the fact that he wrote a book somewhere means that somewhere is going to be able to profit or maintain off of that. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
it's crazy. And also... he was making cinematic universes, quote unquote, before the MCU was even trying to do that stuff, because the Dark Tower is the multiverse and just connects all the books together. So like Marvel, if you really want to impress me, you should get the rights to all of Stephen King's things and make a Dark Tower multiverse, because that would be
I'm sure
I think I'd probably die upon learning that news, and then come back to haunt the theater.
Yeah, so I was going to say every bit of Stephen King news I feel like is a huge deal for you. If that were ever a thing, we're getting a little off topic, but we're about to get quite a bit off topic. But the Dark Tower movie that came out a few years ago felt like a punch in the face to me, because it is probably the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, based on my favorite intellectual property of all time. And you don't know this, I don't think. It came out on my birthday, which was pretty much like, I was so excited. I was going to see it 4 times opening weekend, because that's the kind of crazy dude I am. And I go to see it the first time, and I lied to myself. I was like, that was all right. That was cool. Though, like I understand why it was different, but it was still a fun ride. And then I went to see it the next day, because that's the kind of person I am. And I was just like, this is the worst thing ever. I kind of remember that happening with It Chapter 2 as well, the recent one.
What, for me or for you?
For you.
Yeah, because the It Chapter 1 was just like... I came to terms watching it that I'm never gonna get the It movie that I want, which is fine, because this one was really good, and I loved seeing certain parts on the screen that I wasn't able to in the 1990 miniseries, right? And because for me, the great thing about it is how weird it is, and it's just the studio is too afraid to make something that weird, right? Yeah. They're too afraid to make something where the ending has to do with a metaphysical battle with a cosmic spider, right? Yeah. Like I'm never going to see a metaphysical battle with a cosmic spider. I've accepted that. And the first one is just really, really good. It taps into the kids' characters. It's great. We really got off topic. I'm sorry.
I'm never going to see a metaphysical battle with a cosmic spider.
Right. That
is a great quote.
We're gonna put that on a T-shirt. I'm never going to see a metaphysical battle with a cosmic spider. And oh my God, that is a great T-shirt. Please
T-shirt.
Look at the Nightmare Network store. Keep an eye out for the "I'm never going to see a metaphysical battle with a cosmic spider" shirt. So, it came out, and that one I saw 4 times opening weekend.
That's how many hours of your life? 3, 6, 9, 12. Yeah, never mind. Let's not go into the math.
Yeah, I saw it Thursday night, like 7 p.m. the earliest you could see it. I saw it Friday night. I saw it Saturday during the day. I saw it Sunday during the day, and then I went and saw it again Friday, the week after. And I will say, I probably would have done it regardless, but it happened kind of naturally because I had different groups of people that wanted to see it with me. You know what I mean? Because they know it's my favorite book of all time. They know I'm obsessed, and they were like, "Oh, I want to see." And so I'm just like marking off names on my calendar. Like, all right, so I got Mom and Dad on Saturday. I got Will on Sunday, and so. Yeah, so that one happened a little bit, but you're right. The same thing happened with Chapter 2. Where I made plans to see it 4 times.
Yes, that's right.
And I did not. I think I saw it twice.
Yeah.
And I think I saw it once the night it came out, and I saw it the next day with my mom and dad, because for whatever reason they were super into watching me watch it. So like they didn't want to see it. They were just like, we want to go watch you see it.
We want to see you react to it. Yeah. That's cute.
It's the same thing when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. My best friend was like, I don't want to play it. I just want to watch you play it. I'm very passionate about my fandoms.
That's funny. Okay, so let's end on this. I have one more question for you.
Oh, okay, sure.
And I just want to get your take on the initial experience / initial reaction of going to the Stanley and being in the Stanley compared to going to Bangor for the first time, and like like Stephen King places.
It's a good question. The first time I ever went to Bangor, I lost my mind a little bit, because I felt like I was in a different world. Like it felt like I was experiencing my favorite book in real life, and there's nothing though. The Stanley is great. That's literally Stephen King town, right? Like everything there. There's a Stephen King bookstore. There's a mural with Stephen King. You don't even have to put the name of Stephen King on stuff. Like I go there now, and like I don't need to take the tour anymore. I know where everything is and why it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw the standpipe, I was like, oh my goodness, because the standpipe, it's great too because Bangor plays so much more to the books. Which is what I love, right? Because they didn't shoot it there. They did shoot some aerial shots there, which is cool that they used in the film, but they didn't shoot it there. They didn't. And you could say that about The Shining too, except eventually they did shoot it there, right? But they never shot it there, and I'm such a constant reader. Like, I'm such a Stephen King nerd, and it's always been about the books for me. Like, even though I love the movies, it's always been about the books. So being able to go and see the standpipe, which is such a huge piece to the novel, and just being like, this is real. To see the Paul Bunyan statue, which a lot of people think are cheesy, but it's great. This was the time where I kind of knew that I was going overboard. Was there's this racetrack up in Bangor, and it's I forget what kind of track it's called, but it's a pole track. It's where it's those horses that they have the little carriages behind them, and the people stand in the carriages, and they I don't know it could be called a carriage track. I'm not really sure. Yeah. But I found out that it was a privately owned track. No one's allowed to watch them, but you can bet on them at the casino like next door.
Okay.
And I learned that it was called Bass Park. And So the tour guide, Stu Tinker, he was like, yeah, so we're coming into Bass Park, and before he even said anything, before he even went, I was like, this is Basie Park from It, where Eddie Cochran ran after he got chased by the Swamp Thing from the canal and got his head torn off in the bushes. And I was like, this is that made it real to me. You know what I mean? Like it's such a, like, I didn't need to be told that's what it was, right? And just seeing all these things come to life, it was just such a cool experience. And going to see Steve's house too, which is always fun. He's never there, but every time I have a 25th anniversary edition of It. It's leather-bound slipcase edition. It's from a publication called Cemetery Dance, and they're great. And I wasn't rich at the time, so I couldn't afford like the $5,000 signed copy.
You're rich now.
I'm rich now, right? But I do have a base copy, and I think there's only 3,500 in existence, and it's one of the favorite books I own. I'm a collector of Stephen King editions, and every time I go there, I bring my It. It's huge and really inconvenient to carry around, but I bring it because the first time I don't, he will be there, and he will be like, do you have anything you want me to sign? And I'll be like, I have really just the one thing I want, and this is the one time I didn't bring it. So I'm kind of in a catch-22 where I don't want to bring it anymore because I'll see him and get to talk to him, but then if I don't bring it, he won't sign it. So it's just a crazy catch-22 that I'm just gonna have to live with for the rest of my life. But coming back to your question, this time coming to the Stanley for the first time, it was a 1B, I would say. It was definitely a crazy experience because we have that delineation between book and movie, right? And The Shining is such an important piece of work for me, and to me it's an arguably one of the best, if not the best, work of horror fiction of all time. And if you think I'm over-exaggerating about it, think about the literal pop culture identity that it has that we don't even think about. And this goes back to Stanley Kubrick's too, because without this novel, we wouldn't have Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which means we wouldn't have the carpet, right? We wouldn't have Here's Johnny, right? We wouldn't have the twins, right? And coming back to the book, like for me, if it wasn't without this, we wouldn't have the Overlook. And the Overlook Hotel, the story of a man getting trapped in a hotel with his demons and his family, is something that's always going to be so relevant in pop culture. And I think that's all the real evidence you really need to really say that it is one of the most transcendent and great pieces of horror fiction ever written. Yeah. And so being able to go there and see where it all began, to be able to go into the Cascade Lodge and look in the mirror that Stephen King once looked in and said, "I'm destroying my family." It was a surreal experience for me. So it's a 1A, 1B experience for sure. Yeah. Thank you for joining us on our inaugural episode of Old Haunts. If you guys have any old haunts that are important to you that you think we would enjoy, please drop it in the comments, like and subscribe. Let us know where you want us to go and what you want us to talk about. Please tune in a few weeks for our Old Haunts for Bangor, Maine. We're going to sit down with Jamie Tinker from the Stephen King Tours LLC, talk about how that got started and what makes it tick. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll scare you next time. Thanks for listening to the Nightmare Network podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't be afraid to give us suggestions on movies that spooked you out for our next episode. You can visit nightmarenetworkofficial.com to submit your own nightmare to be adapted into a short film on our YouTube channel. As always, at Nightmare Network, you share your scares.